This morning, is Texas now getting closer to legalized gambling? Las Vegas casino moguls buying the Dallas Mavs, giving them a big footprint in Texas. But how does that change the politics on this issue in Austin? The other side of Senate Bill 4 that is worrying so many immigrants in Texas.
We're not going after someone that's been here longer than 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. We're not going after someone's grandmother that's been here for 50 years.
State Rep David Spiller argues why this soon-to-be law will not result in racial profiling. As soon as Governor Abbott, though, signs SB 4 into law, lawsuits are likely. County Judge Clay Jenkins explains how Dallas County is bracing for impact. The State Board of Education rejected science textbooks over how they explain climate change.
The energy transition is obviously underway in this state. Is Texas preparing students for that?
State Board of Education member Aisha Davis on what it might mean in the classroom. State Senator John Whitmire, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, two political institutions in Houston. One of them, though, will be that city's next mayor by the end of the week. And the state's near total abortion ban now being put to the test at the Texas Supreme Court.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Jason Whiteley. Lots to get to, but let's start with the headlines here. By the end of the week, we will know who the next mayor of Houston will be. The runoff election is Saturday, December the 9th. It's State Senator John Whitmire versus Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. He has more money. She has the big name endorsements. Whitmire, though, did finish ahead of Jackson Lee in the general election. The state's near total abortion ban is being put to the test legally. The Texas Supreme Court heard arguments from 20 women last week who say they were denied an abortion despite having a medically complicated pregnancy. Their lawsuits argue that doctors do not really know when the medical exception in the law actually applies, so they want the Supreme Court to spell it out. And the city of Dallas needs 33,000 homes fast. The city says that's how many it needs just to keep up with current demand. In 7 years, though, by the end of the decade, that number will be more than double to a shortage of 83,000 homes. These are affordable homes we're talking about. What are the consequences, though, the city faces? This is a brand new episode of Y'all-itics that you can download wherever you get your podcasts. This morning, we are awaiting two developments in Austin. The first, when will Governor Abbott sign Senate Bill 4 into law? And second, when will lawsuits be filed to stop that from potentially going into effect? This is the one that lets local and state police arrest undocumented immigrants. Latinos worry this is going to lead to racial profiling. Well, this morning, the author of that bill is here to defend it. State Rep David Spiller represents 12 counties on the west side of DFW.
Representative, thanks for coming in. We appreciate the time.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
You faced a lot of pushback about this bill, House Bill 4, which you originally came up with earlier this year. State Rep Victoria Niave Criado, Congressman Joaquin Castro, they were both on our Y'all-itics political podcast recently talking about this. You said they were making inaccurate statements. What are they getting wrong on this?
Well, first of all, and I did carry House Bill 4 both in the third special session and very similar to what we passed this time out of the House and the Senate with Senate Bill 4. And so they're very similar, but there's a lot of mischaracterization that this is one of these, similar to what Arizona did back in 2010 with SB 1070 that they passed. It's the subject of the Arizona versus U.S. case, kind of a show me your papers deal. That is not at all what Senate Bill 4 does. It's focused on the misdemeanor criminal offense of if someone, an alien, enters our country illegally, basically at a place other than a port of entry, then they've committed a state criminal offense, a Class B misdemeanor, and there's nothing really new about that. That's in existing federal law, has been on the law on the books for years.
Opponents say they worry about racial profiling, and that's something you've heard a lot about. You say this is not going to result in that because of laws that are already on the books. This is a Class B misdemeanor, and that has a statute of limitations for 2 years. So you say there's no chance that somebody in Houston or the city of Dallas or West Texas is going to get pulled over and picked up if they've been here for 50 years.
Well, I'm not saying that they couldn't be stopped or detained, but let's go back to the racial profiling issue. This bill for illegal entry and the elements of illegal entry have absolutely nothing to do with race. As a matter of fact, we're having people come across our southern border from over 100 different countries. I don't know which race that we're talking about. I mean, it'd be very difficult to say that this is racial profiling. It's not. It's whether someone has met the elements of this offense, which would be a misdemeanor. And as you say, a misdemeanor offense in Texas, all misdemeanors have a 2-year limitation period. So we're not going after someone that's been here longer than 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. We're not going after someone's grandmother that's been here for 50 years. There's no way that a law enforcement officer that would make a stop can prove that or meet the element of that sufficient to arrest someone and charge them with illegal entry.
Will police in Dallas and Amarillo and Houston and San Antonio and Austin, will they be able to enforce this if they don't see somebody coming across, if they don't have any evidence that I crossed without going through a port of entry?
Well, if they don't have any evidence, it's going to be hard to prosecute somebody. But it's a statewide law, so it's not just enforced just on the border. It could be enforced in Texarkana. But the likelihood, my view is the farther you get away from the scene of the crime or the situs, the more difficult it would be for a law enforcement officer to allege and prove that someone has crossed illegally and that they did it when they did it and that they did it within 2 years. I mean, you just don't have that information.
Why not just write it where, you know, it's only for 50 miles along the Rio Grande for that area, just narrow it down?
And that's a fair question, but I do think there could be circumstances where law enforcement officers would know, just like we have now. I represent 12 rural counties. We have arrests constantly where people are with smuggling and other things. We have people in our county jails right now that would qualify under this offense. And so we don't want to necessarily limit it. We don't want to tie law enforcement's hands. And so that's why it's a statewide law. But I do think there would be much less apprehension, arrest, detention, prosecution in these urban counties and places away from the border.
But how would you know, like for Jack County specifically, how would you know somebody in the county jail might be able to be prosecuted under this?
You probably wouldn't. You probably wouldn't unless the officer would otherwise, you know, they're trained to look into something and investigate and come up with that determination. So,
but wouldn't they have to ask, are you here legally? Do you have a passport? Stuff like that. Wouldn't they have to ask for your papers?
Not really. I don't think they do. And not only that, but if they do that and they haven't read them their rights, then that's what we call custodial interrogation. That runs afoul of that evidence even being admissible at a trial.
How would somebody in areas away from the border be charged with this if a law enforcement officer did not ask? Let me see, you know, proof of citizenship.
I don't think they would be. And that's why I'm saying all this mass hysteria and fear mongering, in my view, and telling folks that, hey, it's going to be another show me your papers and we're going to be locking people up and right and left. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think most of the enforcement is going to be on the border where officers see people coming across and they're going to handle them accordingly.
Representative, thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate you having me. Thank you.
You know, one other central question is whether this soon-to-be law will fill up county jails in Texas with undocumented immigrants. Representative Spiller's answer and another 20 minutes of Q&A with him in a special episode of Y'all-itics that we just dropped. But the impact on county jails and local taxpayers does concern Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins. Judge, good to see you again here. Do you think Dallas County is going to file a lawsuit against Senate Bill 4 when it's signed into law?
You know, I don't know what we'll do litigation-wise. I do know that law makes us less safe. It does nothing to fix our broken immigration system.
When this is signed into law, then, do you expect Dallas County to enforce it?
Well, it won't be up to Dallas County to enforce it. Dallas County mostly runs the jail. It'll be all the cities and the various law enforcement agencies out there. So they might go to a place where it's well known that the workers are undocumented and scoop up 40 people. And then we're stuck having to house them in a jail that's nearly at capacity now, which means that when officers arrest someone for stealing something out of your garage, there may not be room for them. In the whole state, we have 98,000 county jail beds. We have 3,000 Operation Lone Star border beds. The head of DPS estimates that there are 75,000 people who would be offenders under this law. That is, they're here without papers. And they've been here for less than 2 years.
That would eat up all the beds.
That's all the beds. We're currently across the state at 72% bed capacity. In our urban areas, it's much higher. In our our rural areas it's lower, but there's just not enough beds for all these people.
What's this going to cost Dallas County and other large urban counties?
If the people are arrested, it will cost taxpayers tens of millions of dollars a year, and it could
just to house them.
Just to house them. It may be politically popular, but logistically and financially is dumb.
Well, if it's going to cost Dallas County so much money here, why doesn't Dallas County sue? What are the other options that you have to prevent the costs that are coming with it?
Well, there may be suits, by some people. Right now, my focus is not really on filing a lawsuit. It's on logistically, how do I keep property crime inmates and violent offense inmates who may or may not be guilty, they've been arrested, we haven't found them guilty yet, housed when they need to be housed, and keep this new law from the unintended consequence of releasing people back out into the community that will then commit crimes in your neighborhood.
This law was written in a way that does not conflict with federal law, but it mirrors federal law. It says the exact same thing that federal law says, that if you cross without going through a port of entry, then you can be charged with a misdemeanor. Do you expect that's going to make it any more difficult to challenge in court?
I don't know. The law of the land right now is that the federal government has control over immigration law. But of course, the members of the Supreme Court have changed in the last 10 years. And so I think part of the reason for passing this law was the hope that they could relitigate that like Roe versus Wade was relitigated and get an opposite result.
Judge, thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's bring in the roundtable to talk about the politics of all this. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Aya Mitra is with us from the Texas Tribune, and of course Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Bud, this is the biggest bill Republicans got passed in the fourth special session, which ends this week. What's your reaction to what you just heard?
Well, of course, essentially this bill is a big pile that they wanted to send over to Greg Abbott's desk so he would shut up about vouchers. So this was supposed to be the gift to Greg Abbott. It is as meaningless and as meaningful as both of them say. The truth is in between. Spiller says it probably won't be enforced in most of the state. That's true because DAs, counties are not going to want to assume the cost, not just for jail, but for hiring defense lawyers and for hospital and health care for these immigrants if they arrive as inmates. They're not going to want to spend that money, so they're going to tell the law officers in that county, lay off, don't file those cases.
And the central question here is whether this will survive the legal test.
Yeah, that's the question. Representative Spiller, as he said in his interview with you, talked about the aspect of, that they've written it around to, avoid kind of trampling on federal law, but there's still kind of federal oversight over immigration. So that is going to be decided in a court of law. It's also interesting just to kind of also talk about how Representative Spiller talking about the border aspect of just more like this law will be more affecting border regions, but that really means that the cost here is going to be more impacted on local courts, local jails, local facilities. That's a real concern across the border region.
Bernadine?
And they have a reason to be concerned because most of the enforcement will be done by those local officials. And I think that Representative Spiller is being overly optimistic to think that there will be no racial profiling. So as we'll wait and see how it happens.
And we shall see when the governor signs it into
Jason,
law.
I'll just point out, I carry a passport card now too because from a distance I'm mistaken for a Latino.
Lots more coming up here.
When we come back here this morning, could casinos now be closer to coming to Texas? That's all the talk after Las Vegas moguls are buying the Dallas Mavs. We'll discuss, though, whether this changes the politics of the issue. And 2023, the hottest year on record in human history, but Texas 8th graders will not learn what's causing it. Aisha Davis, a member of the State Board of Education, up next when Inside Texas Politics returns.
Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. As we start to close out 2023, one troubling statistic has emerged. This year is the hottest in human history, and scientists say our planet is only getting warmer. But Texas 8th grade science books will not teach what's causing it. The State Board of Education rejected textbooks critical of oil and gas. Aisha Davis is on the board representing part of Dallas and Tarrant counties. Aisha, good to see you again. Is Texas being straightforward with students on climate change?
Unfortunately, no. We had a huge opportunity to make sure students understood about sustainability, about climate change, about our opportunities to make sure we leave something to future generations, but we decided not to have that information in our textbooks.
Why were these books rejected, these 7 of the 12 books? Is it oil and gas that was influencing this?
Oh, absolutely. My colleagues clearly said it over and over. They wanted to make sure oil and gas was only seen in a positive light. Minimal information about clean energy, lots of positive things about oil and gas.
What was your reaction to that?
Very disappointed.
I mean, oil and gas has made this state over the last century, but still there's an energy transition underway.
Absolutely, and my colleagues didn't necessarily want to add information that students can know more about oil and gas. They wanted to take information away. So now students don't have opportunities to know how they can actually have oil and gas and still a sustainable future, how you can look towards clean energy and still have a strong oil and gas industry. They won't have the opportunity to have those discussions.
The energy transition is obviously underway in this state. Is Texas preparing students for that?
We have amazing science teachers that understand students need to know this information. We have an innovative future ahead of us. And so I'm so confident our science teachers will take the initiative to make sure our students know that. The information won't be in our textbooks. A lot of our publishers were so intimidated by our conversations on keeping that out that they didn't want to go deep into clean energy or anything else that those students can know about the future wave of energy.
Will this not be taught in Texas schools?
Like I said, it won't be necessarily in those textbooks and resources, but that's just the minimal that students need to learn. Teachers can still go into these topics. They can still give students all the information and knowledge that they need. But unfortunately, we did not adopt textbooks that really dove deep into those topics.
School districts are not required to use these books on the list that you guys approve, but they still have to use textbooks that meet the state standards. Do you think there's going to be schools that just sidestep these ones that you guys approved?
Yes, we had a lot of discussion with those publishers, and those school districts got a chance to see all of the rich information they had. So I'm quite sure some of our school districts are still want to use some of those resources that we denied because they were really, really good resources. And they still do have the option to be able to do that.
Aisha, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Coming up here, the Dallas Mavericks and the politics of legalized gambling. Next on the Roundtable.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Bud, Ian, and Bernadine back with us here. Bud, let's start with you and the Dallas Mavericks. Everyone's now talking about whether legalized gambling is now coming because Mark Cuban is selling the Mavs to these big Las Vegas casino moguls.
I'm just amazed. All the sports reporters are talking about it nonstop, and nobody's talking about Austin and what has to happen in the legislature. It has to be 2/3 vote of both chambers, constitutional amendment. It fell, I think, Ian, correct me, I think about 5 or 6 votes short. Charlie Guerin, Kemple finally pulled it back last time because they were a little short on getting it done in the House.
Ian, let's talk about the politics of it. Has anything changed, or what will it take to change the politics of this, I guess, is the real question.
Look, if you look at it from the standpoint of the legislature, you know, Speaker Dade Phelan and Governor Greg Abbott showed a little bit of openness to the idea, and obviously legislation moved in Dade Phelan's House. But you know, you got to look at the Senate. Dan Patrick has consistently poured cold water on it, said it doesn't have the votes, and in a time when a state is having billions of dollars of surplus, it's just going to be a hard sell.
And that's a hard sell because the state doesn't need the money that this would generate, right, Bernadine?
Well,
right now at least.
Perhaps, but I don't think that they're looking at this anytime soon. This is down the line, and there's never a never in politics.
Well, you and I were talking about that. You think this could be coming in the coming years? I
absolutely think that it's coming because money speaks loudly in Texas. And the Allisons have a lot of money, $1 billion or more. So I think that it's coming. It might not come next session, but I bet you it's coming the next few.
Jason, in my lifetime, they said liquor by the drink would never happen. Pari-mutuel gambling would never happen. The lottery would never happen.
Open carry.
We have them all. Open
and
carry.
Then look.
But money comes in from those other sources.
Yeah, that's your point, I guess, Bernadine.
Well, absolutely.
When the money starts flowing.
And then look at education.
Yeah.
You know, they always said that vouchers would never come, but it had a vote for the first time in years. So I think that too much money And I'm not saying that these politicians will be bought off. I'm not saying that. But they're going to put a lot of money in ensuring that gambling comes to the state of Texas.
And even Dan Patrick said he needs to see a financial benefit for it to go forward. And he said this time he didn't see a financial benefit.
So no one's shutting the door on this.
No, and I think the idea of the long game is right. The Adelson family has poured money into the state. Before this, there was a big lobbying effort through Sands, and so this is a long game, and you see this with all kinds of legislation. Yeah. That there's just too much at stake with a state like Texas for something like this.
But filing ends on Monday for Super Tuesday. The ballots aren't going to be very thick.
I'm amazed at how few people have filed. Some of the incumbents don't have opponents. There are open seats that only a couple of people have filed. There are winnable swing seats where the Democrats have yet to find a candidate. And the problem is money. I mean, it's 2.5 months until voting starts. You pretty much have to have $1 million right up front to run for Congress. You have to have somewhere close to that to run for a House seat. And, a lot of candidates can't come up with the money out of thin air.
And this will have long-term consequences, Bernadine.
Absolutely. And I've had a number of potential candidates who tell me it's just too vicious. Politics has become so vicious. Now, money is an issue, but they just don't want the headache that brings with it, and they don't get the benefits.
Yeah. Ian, final word this morning.
When you're going through 4 special sessions and then what's going on with the speaker fight in the House, it's a hard sell to say it's a great idea to run for office right now. It's a tough sell.
Yeah, indeed so. All right, guys, thanks so much. We always appreciate the insight. They're also waiting to see if there's going to be a 5th special session. If the governor calls that, we shall see on that. Always appreciate you watching Inside Texas Politics. We're back again next Sunday and hope you can join us then. Take care.